Next, we're going on to a whole other topic, which is a subsection of cycles. Within these cycles, there does seem to be these polarities, like our night and day. And in fact, they cycle round within this 26,000 years. There is the light and the dark, there is the male and female, and then there is also service to self and service to others, and they have specific effects on humanity. And it seems, again, this is part of the syllabus. It is in stone and there's nothing we can do about them. We live in a life of polarity. Obviously, the Earth has opposite polarities at the poles, the polarities. We've already said night and day, light and dark. The seasons have these polarities where it's hot and it's cold, where things grow and where they die. And again, there's nothing we can do about this. It's set in stone. This is one of the fundamentals of our syllabus, you might say, for learning how to be a human in the third dimension. But there are so many polarities. Everything is a polarity just about. We're a human being, but we're either male or female. And then we bond with the opposite sex to form that whole, because it seems that part of being on the planet with these polarities is learning to balance them up, being able to play both sides of the coin and stay in the middle where possible. But there are extremes of polarities all the time. We've obviously got all the emotions, happiness and sadness. We've even got computing binary, which is 1 or 0, which basically it seems that all programming is based on, all software is based on a 0 or a 1. It is interesting there, though, there's no midline. Usually with the polarity, you have the balance between, but obviously it works, doesn't it? Because all programming is based on it. Life and death, left brain, right brain. We've all got these 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, 2 kidneys, 2 lungs. Why is that? Is that all to do with male and female? But again, it does seem that polarities are extremely important. One of those things which is forced in front of us all the time. So it must be something that is very key to our learning during the time we are on this planet, in this third dimensional world. I have read this book called 2/3. And I never really got what it meant fully. There's a lot of stories, there's a lot of calculations and mathematical equations, basically even how to build your anti-gravitic spaceship. But throughout it all, there's these equations regarding 2/3. So it must be something extremely important. And when I thought about polarities, I wonder if it's relating to that. If you have opposite polarities, it's like having thirds. You've got 1/3 at one end and 1/3 at the other, and then that midpoint, the balance between the two, is that second third. I don't know, that's just completely random. But the key thing, I believe, is the midpoint between the polarities, is to find that balance. And the other thing is that the books I've read about other races, some of those have gone to a unity conscious, and that's what it appears that we are going to. So it's where you don't need the opposite polarities. And I understand the fifth dimension is more of a unity consciousness. And surely that is where you come to balance between the two. So eventually, once you've balanced that enough, I suppose you don't need those polarities. But we have to go through that learning process before we can go into that unity consciousness. So again, these polarities seem to be an extremely fundamental part of human existence, which are obviously there for a reason, for us to learn about them, to understand them, what effects they have on us. The 24-hour day I spoke about in Cycles of Time consists of 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of darkness. And of course, this is a polarity between light and dark, these opposing polarities. And they cycle through. There's nothing we can do about it. They're kind of hardwired into this 3D universe, this 3D world that we live in. You might say we are forced to experience these polarities of light and dark every 24 hours. We can't change that. So I'm making this point about being forced into these different polarities because I believe there are other polarities which we are forced to experience. And they go from one to the other, from one to the opposing polarity. And so, to get back to the point I was making about the cycles of time, these 13,000 years that we don't really know much about or are not talked about, it seems that they are also linked to polarities. These cycles of time have within them cycles of polarity. So my belief is, as we go through these cycles of time, some polarities seem to change and they become predominant over the other polarity. So what I'm saying is, for the 26,000 year cycle, there will be a polarity that runs for 13,000 years, and then the opposing polarity will run for the other 13,000 years. And each of these 13,000 years, the dominant polarity will greatly affect humanity for that period. So let's have a look at these polarities that I believe change during the 26,000 year cycle and affect humanity. So we have service to self, or you could say the dark, and then the other side of the polarity would be light and service to others. And it seems as if when the Earth is moving towards the center of the galaxy, this light, then we go into this spiritual evolution phase. And the service to others, polarity, if you like, that energy, that way of being in consciousness seems to predominate or dominate over the service to self. And it seems to be complemented as well then the female type energy. And the females come to the fore, and their ways of being and leading, again, that predominates over the male. And then as we come around for the second half of the 13,000 years, we head into the dark. It's a time of rest and integrating this new spiritual consciousness, this learning. Then it seems that the male takes over, the more protective energy of the male takes over for those 13,000 years. And so it seems as if that is the cycle of this spiritual day, which I would like to propose to you. Because we can see now, we can see now that we're very much in a male dominated society. It's a polarity, incredibly polarized towards the male energy being the leaders of the world. And that is changing. That is changing slowly. More and more women leaders are coming to the fore. And that is for a reason. This new age started in 2012, roughly, and slowly, but it seems that somehow there's a natural kind of changeover between this polarity. And again, this is what I'm saying, and it may be to do with the light in the center of the galaxy, and it may be to do with some other energy, which I'll come on to in just a minute. But you would expect there's something that helps this process to change over from the cycles, from the end of one cycle to the beginning of the new, from the end of, say, the male energy to start the female, from the end of the service to self. Because again, there seems to be, if we look at society and we look at the culture, we look at the way we are governed today, it does seem as if we have been very much in the throes and the powers of people who are interested in controlling others. Service to self. So looking at this end of time we've just come out of, and we've just come into the new age, there is this kind of changeover, but we're still very much stuck in that older one, which is male dominated, service to self dominated. It's in the dark. This light is now coming in and things are happening, be it slowly, but they are happening. The more female energies are rising and the service to others is starting to predominate. So, only time will tell if this is true or not, I suppose. Can you see what I'm talking about? The time we are going through right now only happens every 26,000 years. It seems that we are entering this new age. The Mayans have prophesied with their calendars that we go through this immense change every 26,000 years. So if what I've said is true, then we've come out of a male-dominated service to self cycle, and we're moving into a light service to others, female-dominated era, new cycle, new 13,000 years. But we are going through that point now. And this is where we change over. There's a kind of change of cycles, if you like, change of polarities. We are going through a changeover from the old guard to a new guard, from the dark to the light, from the male energy to the female, from service to self to service to others. This is a very wonderful time for humanity. We are going back into the light, and we have wonderful things which are all about to happen. So this is wonderful, except the dark, you might say, has had its feet under the table and they've got themselves settled in, and they do not really want to move out now. You've had your time to go, but they don't want to go. There is this resistance. And let's say there's been many other spiritual days to the earth. Perhaps Lemuria was a spiritual day, and perhaps Atlantis was a spiritual day, and they both seem to have these cataclysms at the end. And was this the changeover from the light to the dark? It seems going from a service to others, which is very peaceful and loving, to a service to self. The service to self people, I imagine, could just come straight in. They would not worry about forcing the issue, using weapons, etc. And perhaps that would explain these big cataclysms at the end of other ages. But when you have this other changeover, so changing from service to self to service to others, the peaceful people, it's just not within them to come in and then say, okay, get out of the way, or I'm going to force my way in, because they're not to do with force. I will come on and explain the different types of consciousness, because there's another very interesting thing which paints a great picture. So you've got this bit of a standoff. It's like the service to others are coming in and say, well, okay, guys, we're at the new cycle. It's your time to get out. We'll give you a couple of weeks to get your stuff together, and then we'll come in as has been prearranged. And they're not going to do that. They've got their feet under the table, and they're going to say, well, I'm sorry, but we're staying. We're quite happy. Thank you. And they will do whatever is necessary to stay there. And they don't really care. That's part of their polarity. That's part of their service to self, way of being. That is part of them. So you could say, well, okay then. Well, how is this going to happen? It's almost like we need some kind of catalyst or some kind of help in order to shake up all the impurities or the toxins of the earth and the ways of living that have been hidden away in the past thousands of years, so that then we can start this new wonderful 13,000 years of the next cycle. So we need some help here, really, to help with this process. If I can just summarize what I've been saying, we live in a world of polarities, and certain polarities are actually forced on us from one to the other. When we get into life and get caught up in emotions, we can go to extremes of emotions, or we can stay balanced, or we go from one end to the other end. We can experience both polarities. But there seems to be certain polarities which are just kind of hardwired into the structure of the universe or the world we live in, such as our night and day, dark and light. It's kind of forced onto us. There's nothing we can do about it. There are other polarities which are also forced onto us, and I believe it's part of this 26,000 year cycle. So they change every 13,000 years, and they have specific effects on humanity. And these are male or female. They are service to self or service to others. and also being aligned with the center of the galaxy or being aligned with the darkness of space. These are the three which I am proposing are polarities which change over every 13,000 years. We are now just changed over in 2012 to the start of a new cycle. And this new cycle has just ended where we aligned with the dark and the service to self and the male energies. So now at 2012, things have changed, or they are changing slowly into the new age, which is female energy, it is service to others, and it is a light. We are becoming more aligned with this amazing light, what I'm saying is a kind of spiritual light in the center of the galaxy. And so we are still in the process of change. The changeover period, as history might say, is a volatile period. So we have the service to self people who are very much into force and using any means necessary to get their own way. So let's say, for example, those people would be in government. We've come to the changeover period, which we did in 2012, and there's got to be a process to change over. Now, has this begun to happen? Well, you might say that the service to self people have got their feet firmly under the table and they do not really want to move, and they are quite happy to use force in any means they want to in order to stay there. And of course, then the service to other people are coming in, but there's a bit of a stalemate there. So how do we actually, move this on? It seems to be a little bit of a problem, but there seems to be help at hand, and it's all part of the cycle of this world as we travel through space. There seems to be this area of space that we are coming into, which is of great help to us. And this is high photon energy. And I'm talking about high photon energy in the next video.